Tonight on Real to Real, we'll look at how the Campaign for Human Development is lending a hand to help Central American refugees gain their independence. We'll travel to Phoenixville, Pennsylvania, and visit St. Mary the Assumption Church, our parish profile. Doris Winkler will get you up and dancing, and Father Bob Curtis will join us with another reflection. All this tonight on Real to Real. Hello, I'm Monsignor Charles Minon.
And I'm Pat Shelton. Welcome to Real, especially all you new viewers. We're so glad you finally found us. Now, for example, tonight we're going to learn about the Armenian Catholic Church. What I know about the Armenian Catholic Church is very little. I learned, for example, that Armenia was the first Christian nation established in 301 AD. Did you know that? Well, stay with us and learn with me tonight.
And learn with me, too, some more about the Campaign for Human Development. Our bishops do much to lead us, but sometimes we think it's just another collection. But you must realize and understand that your sacrifices make it possible and secure to keep human dignity.
Within the city of Los Angeles, there exists a hidden population of over 700,000 people, a culture and a community of Central American refugees from El Salvador and Guatemala fleeing dangerous conditions in their own lands. Now in America, most find themselves very poor and in need of supporting themselves and their families. But through special efforts funded by a program known as the Campaign for Human Development, these people are not only beginning to overcome their own poverty, but they are being empowered with a renewed sense of dignity. Campaign for Human Development, or CHD, began in 1970 as part of the U.S. Catholic Church's response to the overwhelming dilemma of poverty that afflicts many in our nation. Within Los Angeles, CHD efforts have had a profound positive impact on the growing Central American community here. Tom Chaboya is Executive Director of the Center for Justice and Peace and the Campaign for Human Development effort in the Los Angeles Archdiocese.
One of the, I think, fundamental underpinnings that we work from here with CHD and as Catholics goes back to Catholic social teaching. And I think the primary principle that underpins Catholic social teaching is the dignity of the human person. That's the place where we need to begin. That's our starting point.
I see the real sense of responsibility in challenging the structures that keep people in poverty or that keep people oppressed. For instance, in the whole question of immigration, the fact that the United States has not granted political asylum to the majority of Central Americans fleeing their country because of the civil war in their own country. And again, there's a responsibility or there's an opportunity as persons to really challenge policies and structures and call them to a justice.
Maya Fashions is an enterprise wholly owned by the Guatemalan immigrants who work here. It is one of several endeavors partially supported by funds from the Los Angeles Archdiocese Campaign for Human Development Office. These workers are part of a cooperative that serves as a welcome alternative to the exploitation they would otherwise face within the garment industry.
If you were to go into the sewing industry, where many of the Guatemalans are finding jobs, you'll find that they work 24-hour days, or the sewing industry operates on a 24-hour day basis, 7 days a week. They're paid by piecemeal rather than an hourly wage. Many of them cannot earn a minimum wage by the piecemeal work that they do. Consequently, to earn minimum wage, they would have to work longer hours. And the cooperative pays on an hourly basis or a salaried basis. Therefore, they're not under the tremendous demands of bringing home an income to their families and working longer hours to sustain some type of an income.
The Central American Refugee Center, or CARECEN, is another organization that receives aid from Campaign for Human Development. Translated in English, CARECEN means those in need. CARECEN's primary directive is to serve as a legal and social help resource for the many Central Americans in this city who have nowhere else to turn. CARECEN's Executive Director, Madeline Janis, works closely with the Los Angeles Campaign for Human Development Office.
Campaign for Human Development has been a long-time supporter of CARECEN's work for many, many years. Not only a financial supporter, but by giving us moral support, by giving us technical support, by sort of being there for us, being a resource for us over, I'd say, at least the past 5 years.
Crescent was started primarily in response to the tremendous incoming of refugees from the Central America countries, to respond to their needs, to provide legal aid, to provide education on their rights, to help them go through the process of obtaining their green card and entering into the workforce.
Campaign for Human Development support for Crescent is especially directed toward the effort to organize and empower the Los Angeles area's Central American street vendors. Unlike all other major cities in the United States, street vending has not been legalized within Los Angeles. Through Crescent Street Vendor Association, Central American immigrants are aided in their struggle to become contributing members of society.
CHD is specifically funding Crescent's work with the organizing of street vendors and other refugee groups. And for the past 2 or 3 years, I should actually say go back a little bit, since 1986 when new immigration law was passed and employer sanctions were passed, many refugees had no other option but to go to the underground economy as street vendors, as day laborers, to eke out a living however they could. And there are actually thousands of refugees who have taken to the streets selling mangoes and fruit and tamales and baby clothes in order to try and make a living.
Campaign for Human Development's story in the Los Angeles area is one that demonstrates a working compassion with no regard to race, social class, or immigration status. The only prerequisites here are the need to better oneself and a desire to empower a community. Throughout the U.S., this remains the driving motivation for all those working with the Campaign for Human Development.
Where CHD is a tremendous beacon of hope, a tremendous beacon of light, in that it shows that one voice joined with another can make a difference, that you can overturn structures, you can overturn policies, you can create alternative ways in which people can be empowered to participate in society to their fullest.
True charity is never just a donation. It's something which comes out of real respect for the people to whom you give it.
So much beauty, so much history, so much service. That's what you'll find when you visit St. Mary of the Assumption in Phoenixville. This week's Parish Profile.
Here in the beautiful county of Chester stands the Church of St. Mary of the Assumption. Situated in an area that is quickly becoming the home of many corporations, St. Mary's is one of 4 parishes established to serve the needs of a growing flock. Although St. Mary's was formally founded in 1840, a handful of Catholics had formed the parish years prior when they gathered for Mass with a traveling missionary. In 1841, the ground on which St. Mary's now stands was purchased for $200, and by March, a rectangular church 30 by 45 feet stood on the 1 acre of land. By 1846, the number of parishioners had increased so greatly that a resident pastor became necessary. The Reverend Philip A. O'Farrell was appointed to tend the spiritual needs of St. Mary's congregation. As the years passed and the community grew, it soon became evident that little old St. Mary's was no longer able to accommodate the increasing number of parishioners. Renovations were begun in 1854, and despite the little prosperity which existed among parishioners, a new transept and bell tower were added, altering the shape of the church to a Roman cross contour. On July 4, 1855, the 1,410-pound bell, which hung in the new belfry, was blessed and dedicated by Bishop John Newman. Today, the Church of St. Mary of the Assumption still stands on the original acre of land purchased over 150 years ago. Although both the exterior and interior of the church have changed during this time, the additions only serve to enhance the beauty of this parish. Perhaps the most striking feature of the interior is the large painting which is positioned above the main altar. Crafted by artist Rudolf Schmalzel in Munich, Germany, the painting depicts the Crucifixion and is registered with the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City. In the rear of the church is a magnificent pipe organ, which traces its roots back to the 1800s. Unlike the electronic instruments of today, this organ produces its sound in a much different way.
The pipe organ works on the pipes with air supply. It runs on wind. It has a wind supply. It goes through. It does run on electricity. But when you have an electronic organ, it is microchips, and it runs all on electronics.
Constructed by the Hook Hastings Company, it is composed of 15 stops with 3 couplers, 15 ranks of pipes, and 2 manual mechanical action. The organ, which is over 95 years old, still produces the same sweet-toned sounds it did when it was first installed in St. Mary's in 1897. In an attempt to respond to the issues of social justice and the teachings of the gospel, the parishioners of St. Mary's have recently joined the efforts of the Sisters of St. Francis to convert the empty St. Mary's Convent into a family shelter.
The family shelter addresses social justice issue by taking people from all denominations, all races, who are down on their luck. They're basically homeless. Some of them are still working, but they just can't afford the housing that's available in the area and need a fresh start. The shelter, I think, has brought a great deal of blessing to St. Mary's Parish and has been a rejuvenation of our old convent into a very good use.
In 1990, St. Mary's celebrated its 150th anniversary. Composed of 3 and 4 generations of families, St. Mary's is a community which has overcome many obstacles in its past and one which strives to grow and flourish in an ever-changing environment, looking with promise and hope to another 150 years.
We hope you enjoyed your visit to St. Mary of the Assumption in Phoenixville. It's a delightful time to be there and always to go there. But stay now, we'll be right back here.
Son, I figured when you were old enough, I'd talk to you about drugs. I'd tell you they're nothing but poison. Tell you to stay away from the garbage that pushes that junk. Only I never figured that I ought to be telling that to a 13-year-old.
If you don't teach your kids to say no to drugs, it's as good as saying yes.
It says that colon cancer is 90% curable if treated early. Maybe we should get a checkup.
Honey, I have more important things to worry about right now.
Atlanta researchers have discovered a new surgical treatment that could prevent blindness in thousands of people with diabetes. Every cent counts.
You know, I like this job, and one of the reasons is I get to meet a lot of interesting people, and I get to learn a lot of new things. The gentleman we're going to meet tonight is Simon Oulouhojian.
Excellent.
Oulouhojian.
Excellent. Wonderful, wonderful.
Simon is a member of St. Mark's Armenian Catholic Church in Wynwood, PA. And tonight we're going to discuss the Armenian Catholic Church. Simon, there's lots of things to acquaint the people with. For example, you told me before we started that Armenia was the first Christian nation established in 301 AD, accepted by king and people, and it's been that way ever since.
Absolutely. That's quite amazing. A distinction, yes.
I never knew that.
Yes, well, a lot of people don't, but that was quite a unique thing. With the baptism of our king, and the queen, and the court, all occurred in 301 AD at the hands of St. Gregory the Illuminator.
And when I think of Armenia, I think of Noah's Ark coming to rest on Mount Ararat.
Right.
Right where Armenia is.
The symbol of Armenia, yes, Mount Ararat. It's now near the border area between Soviet Armenia and what used to be Turkish Armenia.
Mm-hmm. But what a history. And recently, more history was made in connection with the Armenian Church right here in Philadelphia. Why don't you tell us about that?
Yes, we've enjoyed the first pastoral visit of our patriarch, our Catholicos Patriarch, John Peter 18th Kasparian. And he is paying his first visit on the occasion of the 10th anniversary of the establishment of the Armenian Exarchate, the Apostolic Exarchate for Armenian Catholics in the United States and Canada 10 years ago. And it's really a wonderful time to talk about it because it really started in Philadelphia. We had the Episcopal ordination of our first exarch here in the Cathedral Basilica of St. Peter and Paul in Philadelphia in December of 1981 in the presence of then Cardinal Kroll, who was there. Excellent, wonderful time.
Okay.
His Beatitude is visiting now. He's visiting St. Mark's Parish. He said a Mass at the Cathedral Basilica last Sunday. He's visited the Armenian Sisters Academy last Wednesday, visited with the Armenian children. Our academy is staffed by the Armenian Sisters of the Immaculate Conception, which we're very proud to have here in Philadelphia, the first school of its kind established in America by the Armenian Sisters. So we're rather proud to have him visit. Now on Thursday he had a pastoral visit at the parish with a congregation coming in to speak to him. It's an opportunity for the people to sit down and express their concerns, spiritual or otherwise, with their patriarch, with the spiritual head of their church. That's a real wonderful opportunity. It relates a lot to a lot of the pastoral work that Archbishop Bevilacqua is doing. He's going out into the parishes and talking to his people. Our patriarch has to do this on a worldwide basis.
Yes.
His see city is in Beirut, Lebanon. So you can imagine what he goes through.
Yes.
His beatitude is continually shuffling between Beirut and Rome and then off to the various parishes around the world.
Okay. Simon, let's talk a little bit about the Armenian Catholic rite, which is a little bit different and very much similar. Tell us about it. I understand it's a very beautiful rite.
It's quite beautiful. It's different in ceremonies. First, the Mass is the Mass. We call it the Divine Liturgy or the Badarak. And it is done, it is said in Armenian, completely in Armenian.
Okay.
Previously, mostly classical Armenian. Today we use everyday type of Armenian in the gospel and so forth.
I was looking at your missalette, but it's all in English.
Well, that's so that the American people or the other people can follow it.
Yes.
However, we're very pleased because with the school that we have, it's so wonderful that the children are retaining their heritage and their culture and their language. You cannot protect your ethnic or authenticity without the preservation of the language.
Yes.
Very important. And therefore, if you come to St. Mark's, you will see a Mass that is basically the same Mass. However, it'll be done in different vestments. It'll be done in Armenian, and Holy Communion is given under two species with the dipping of the host into the wine and then right onto the tongue.
Okay. We have much time left. Is there much of an Armenian Catholic community locally?
Our community was established in 1923. We have about 150, 160 families here in Philadelphia on a continuing basis. The general Armenian community around the United States, we have communities in Los Angeles, Boston, New York City, Montreal, Toronto, and Detroit. So that's quite a thing. We have close to a couple of 100,000 Armenian Catholics around the world. The Apostolic Church is a lot larger than the Catholic Church.
But we have to stop right there.
Right.
Because I would love you to stay longer and tell us some more. But who knows, maybe we can come to St. Mark's and meet you and continue the conversation. I'm sure we'll be welcome there.
Love to have you.
And thank you for stopping by to see us on this historic occasion of the visit of your patriarch. And won't you continue to be with us for the rest of Real to Real? Thanks.
Thank you.
If I can stop one heart from breaking, I shall not live in vain. If I can ease one life the aching, or cool one pain, or help one fainting robin unto his nest again, I shall not live in vain. These words of Emily Dickinson reflect the ideals that Jesus taught us. With the assistance of faithful Catholics across America, we have made these words live on by helping the sick, the poor, the lost, by giving comfort and solace to those in need, by building chapels where none existed before, and rebuilding lives through the Word of God. We are the Catholic Church Extension Society, caring for Mission America since 1905. To learn more about Extension's missionary efforts, write for a free introduction to Extension Magazine. The address is Extension Magazine, 35 East Wacker Drive, Chicago, Illinois, 60601.
We welcome your comments, suggestions, and donations and encourage you to write us at Real to Real, St. Charles Seminary, 1000 East Wynwood Road, Overbrook, PA 19096, or call us during regular business hours at 668-9842.
We met Simon, and there's so many people we don't know about in our own neighborhoods, and many things we miss and don't see. But you know, there's a miracle of beauty all around us. But you have to have faith to see it.
Back in the 30s and 40s, I used to win jitterbug contests. Got a whole bunch of little tin cups that they gave for prizes. Well, now I'm a creepy crawler, can't do that anymore, but they've created something wonderful called line dancing. Good for the girls because you don't need a partner. Line dancing is a different way to stay fit, which parallels an aerobic style of exercise without the wear and tear of aerobics.
This is easier than aerobics because you don't have to have any skills.
Now, if you can't line dance, take it from me, you can't dance at all. In fact, it's kind of like kindergarten. You line up in rows facing an instructor, you follow the instructor's movements as he calls them out, and most of the steps have names.
Popular ones are right up here: cab driver, alley cat, polka, oh, on the road again, all my exes. We have about, I'd say, 75 of them.
Doris McLaughlin, who is a widow, comes with a gaggle of girlfriends.
We're all here to have fun and dance and make us feel good. Oh, we don't need a partner. No, we dance alone.
Well, you wouldn't call line dancing sexy or even exciting, but this 80-year-old says it peps her up.
Well, it makes you stay young.
Well, you can see this is great fun, good exercise, not as hard as aerobics, but will anything ever replace jitterbugging? Don't think so. I'm Doris Winkler.
I've been blind for most of my life, yet there isn't a day that goes by when I don't marvel at the beauty of the world around me. That beauty may lie in the wonder in the face of a little blind girl in my homeland of Egypt. She too cannot see, or at least not in the way that defines sight, yet she gazes with hope and trust into the future. Or it may lie in the majesty of Niagara Falls, that thrilling, almost overwhelming power of nature. Or in the way the sun shines through the trees as it begins to sink gently into the west. We are surrounded by such miracles. Perhaps that's why we don't stop to savor them every day. I have personally experienced a miracle of my own. It happened when I was 6 years old. I had been blinded since I was a baby because of complications due to a bout of German measles. In Egypt, the people of my faith have a special devotion to Our Lady. There is a shrine, the Church of St. Mary, where we go in search of special blessings. My parents took me there, hoping that my sight would be restored. We stayed there all night, and while I was asleep, Our Lady appeared to me and told me to get up, light a candle, and walk to where the women were baking the communion bread. But I cannot see, I told her. You can now, she said. And it was true, I could. I would have my precious sight from that day on until my final year in high school, when a schoolyard accident rendered me totally blind. I was lying in a hospital, having just been operated on to have my sight restored once again, when a friend gave me my first camera. It was his way of saying that he believed I'd be able to see again, but it was not to be. Even so, I began to take photographs, and from the moment I began to use the camera, I was reborn, a new person. How do you do it? People ask about my work. I tell them, sight is only one of our 5 senses. I can tell where the sun is from the way it strikes my cheek. I can hear the wind and sense where it blows through the landscape. I can smell the spray of Niagara Falls. And exhaust from the cars on the Brooklyn Bridge. And I can touch the faces of children. And sense the beauty of a young woman who is smiling. I am convinced that God has given me a mission in life. It is to let the many millions of blind people in the world know Nothing need be denied to you as long as you have faith. It was faith that returned my sight to me when I was a child, and faith that gave me an entirely new way of seeing when I was a young man. It is my faith that lets me know that when I take up my camera to record the beauty of the world around me, that I do so honestly and to the greater glory of God. I am a blind photographer. The world is full of miracles.
Hey, Thomas, so you had doubts? Well, I gotta tell you, so did I. But look, Thomas, you had certain advantages over me. You lived in a time when there was no cynical press, no TV, no cars, no other noisy intrusions. In other words, Thomas, it was quiet. You could think in your time. You could listen. You could reflect on things. Me? Forget it. My world is ruled by things that are loud and aggressive. But listen, Thomas, the main advantage you had was that you saw Jesus of Nazareth. You walked with him. You talked with him. You saw him smile. You felt his touch. And still you doubted. A lot of people think you must have been a jerk. But not me, understand, Thomas. Not me. I know you. You were not a poet. That was the problem. You were a scientist, so you thought you needed proof. Also, I'm very grateful to you, Thomas, because you make my doubts seem unimportant. Fact is, Thomas, you were one of those people who say all the time, this is too good to be true. But you also were the first person on earth to call Jesus God. It was not easy for you to commit to faith, Thomas, but once you did, you never looked back. Walk with me, Thomas. Be my friend. We've got a few things in common. Hey, Thomas?
Pat, thank you for bringing Steve. I was going to call him Steve.
Simon.
Simon. His uncle Steve was on by I knew. I knew Uncle Steve, Monsignor Stepanian, many years ago, at First Station St. Donato's, and I was amused to hear you talk about their liturgy and their ritual, spoken in Armenian.
Oh, it was so interesting. I only wish we could have had more time to talk with Simon.
The amusement, though, Pat, was when Monsignor would come to say Mass at our parish church. He would bring his vestments and his language, and our people didn't mind. He said Mass in his own language, and it was just beautiful.
He said Mass in Armenian?
Oh, yes, indeed. Mass people. But it was just a great experience to be this holy priest who taught us how to be a pastor of people who really needed help and assistance. Please pray for priests. Pray for those who are trying so much to help so many people. And so I see you next time. God bless you.
And don't forget, no matter which rite, we are all family. Good night, everyone.
On May the 15th, 1991, a light went out in our lives when Father David M. McGowan was called by God from this world. Many viewers will remember Father McGowan as one of the former hosts of Reel to Reel. When first asked to screen test for the show, Father was a little reluctant about the prospect of becoming a TV star, but on the advice of a spiritual director, he auditioned and won the position. He served for 3 years as host for Reel to Reel and brought to the show his own special blend of spirituality and enthusiasm. Father David McGowan will be missed by many, but remembered by all whenever they hear the words he used to sign off each week.
Jesus is Lord.
Praise the Lord. I'm Father Ralph Chifo from the Charismatic Office. Jesus assures us, I am the way, the truth, and the life. And each week at a charismatic prayer group, we experience through sharing, singing, and learning the joy of knowing the Lord with us. Become one of us and all of our brothers and sisters in prayer and the joy of learning about Christ's death and resurrection. Contact us at 668-HOPE.